Let's take a look at two values that we've neglected up until now. They've been present in every resolver function that we've written for both queries and mutations, and those values are self and info. Let's take a look at info first, and we'll begin by extending our application to include post data. Let's say we have a blogging application and we want users within our app to also be able to create their own posts. So we'll represent this post data first by making a class called post, which subclasses from graphene.objectType. And each post is going to consist of two fields, a title, which will be a string, and some post content, also a string. We want users to be able to create new posts, so we'll add a new mutation to our root mutation class with the name createPost. And that's going to be set to createPost, a new createPost class dot field. So let's make this createPost class. It'll subclass from graphene.mutation. The arguments that we'll need to pass to it will be put on our arguments class, and those will be title and content. So we can just grab the names of the fields and their corresponding types from our post class. Then to create new posts, we'll add our mutate resolver. That'll take self, info, and our two arguments, title and content. We're going to create a new post with the post class, passing in the argument values for title and content. We'll store this created post in a post variable, and we're going to return create post, and it'll have on it a field called post containing our created post. So let's declare our post field up at the top, and that'll be set to graphene.field, and pass in our post class to indicate its shape. So to make a new post now, we can write a post mutation with the mutation name createPost, and we'll just hard code the values. Our title will be, for example, hello, and content world. Then we'll have our post field, and on it our created title and content. We'll make sure to comment out our variable values, and then we'll run schema.py. And naturally we'll get our created post. But if we have this concept of users within our application, we want to prevent any anonymous users, unauthenticated users, from being able to create a post. So how do we do this? Well, to our schema.execute method, we can pass through another value called context. And on context, we can provide whatever values that we want. In this case, to indicate whether a user is anonymous, we'll add the isAnonymous property, and that'll be set to true. So let's say a user's trying to create a post and they're anonymous. We want to prevent them from creating the post. To do so, we can head to our createPost class, to our mutate resolver, and from info, we can get access to what we passed onto context. We can grab the values from context with info.context, and then use get and specify the name of the property that we put on context. In this case, isAnonymous. So we'll get isAnonymous. So now if we just print this, when we create a new post, we should see true. So since this is true, let's add a conditional where we'll say if isAnonymous is true on our context object, then we'll raise an exception to prevent this post from being created, and this exception will say not authenticated, for example. So let's save and run this again, and we get our exception, not authenticated. class that created a kind of computed value out of our ID and username. First, we have to create a new field that represents the avatar URL, and it's going to be of type string. So our resolver will be resolve avatar URL. It's going to take self and info, and we're going to return from this first a base URL, let's say some sort of image service like Cloudinary. And then we wanted to interpolate the two values username and then ID. We could use the format method to do that, and this is where self comes in. Self gives us access to the field values whenever we're working with the user class. So to get access to the username, we could say within format to interpolate it as the first value, self.username. And then for the ID, that'll be the argument self.id. So now we have this new avatar URL field on each of our users. So if we query for our users, now we can ask for ID created at, username, as well as avatar URL. And we can remove context for this. So when we save and run this, we get for each of our users a unique URL